Amazon Web Services cuts hundreds of jobs. Microsoft puts a huge cost on staying on Windows 10. A small hotel chain gets clobbered by a cyber attack. Germany moves 30,000 desktops to an open-source version of Office. And a lone Microsoft engineer thwarts years spent by a hacker infiltrating a widely used Linux utility that could have hit millions of devices. All this and more on the See Something, Say Something edition of Hashtag Trending. I'm your host, Jim Love. Let's get into it. Amazon's cloud computing arm, Amazon Web Services, or AWS, has announced it's laying off several hundred employees across various divisions. The cuts span the company's sales, marketing, global services, and physical stores technology teams. AWS says the layoffs are part of the efforts to streamline operations and reduce duplication within the organization. Many of the job losses are focused on training, certification, and sales operations as AWS shifts towards more self-service digital training platforms. In a statement, an AWS spokesperson said the moves will allow the company to concentrate resources on key strategic areas to drive innovation and deliver maximum impact for customers. However, analysts suggest that broader forces are also at play behind the layoffs. The surging cloud spending during the COVID-19 pandemic has moderated, prompting AWS's own customers to cut costs. There are also concerns that rivals like Microsoft are seizing market share, especially in fields like AI cloud services. Despite the cuts, AWS remains the market leader in cloud computing with an estimated 31% market share at the end of 2023. But its growth has slowed compared to competitors like Microsoft's Azure. The latest rounds of layoffs at AWS follows the elimination of 9,000 roles earlier this year, as the tech giant looks to trim expenses and navigate these changing economic conditions. The Omni Hotels and Resorts chain has confirmed its computer systems were taken down over the weekend due to a cyber attack on the company's IT environment. The American luxury hotel operator, which operates 50 properties across the U.S. and Canada, first acknowledged an outage impacting its systems last Friday. And if you're wondering how big the impact can be on a hotel where the main product is a room and cleaning services, this story's an eye-opener. For several days, Omni Hotels struggled with disabled reservation databases, non-functioning room key cards, and offline point-of-sale systems used for payments. Some guests reported having to be escorted to their rooms by staff, while others said they faced lengthy delays getting into their rooms as employees had to manually unlock doors. After initially providing few details, Omni has now disclosed the IT disruption was caused by a major malicious cyber attack that forced the company to proactively take systems offline to contain the incident. While Omni says it's working to restore full functionality, the attack represents a major operational headache over the busy Easter weekend, likely resulting in substantial losses. A cybersecurity firm has been brought in to investigate the extent of the attack and whether any customer data was compromised or stolen. Now, there are inevitable comparisons to the 2022 ransomware attack on MGM Resorts that caused widespread outages across the casino's giant properties and reportedly cost over $100 million in losses. But this is a much smaller chain, and the revenue losses, especially on the holiday weekend, could be devastating to some businesses. It's a serious reminder that every business is dependent on its digital infrastructure to operate, even if their main product or service isn't digital, as in this case. Microsoft is taking an aggressive new pricing strategy in its effort to transition users from the popular Windows 10 operating system to the newer Windows 11 platform. The software giant has announced sharply higher costs for organizations that want to continue receiving security updates for Windows 10 after it reaches end of support in October 2025. Under Microsoft's new Extended Security Updates, or ESU program, businesses will have to pay $61 per device for the first year of updates for Windows 10 once mainstream support ends. That yearly price will then double each successive year, jumping to $122 in year 2 and $244 in year 3, with a maximum 3-year support window. This represents a major increase over previous ESU pricing for Windows 7, which started at just $25 per device for the first year. Microsoft claims these rising fees are meant to be a temporary bridge, pushing companies still running Windows 10 to fully migrate to Windows 11 before facing even higher costs. The aggressive pricing strategy underscores Microsoft's growing frustration with the sluggish adoption of Windows 11 since its 2021 launch. The latest market share data shows Windows 10 still accounts for around 70% of desktop operating systems globally versus somewhere around 27% for Windows 11. Microsoft has extended multiple incentives to drive Windows 11 upgrades, including the carrot of incentives like built-in generative AI functions with Copilot, but increasingly it seems to be using punishing costs for Windows 10 extended support as a stick to force users' hands. And the northern German state of Schleswig-Holstein is hitting Microsoft from another direction, taking steps towards what it calls digital sovereignty by transitioning 30,000 government computers away from Microsoft Office to the open-source LibreOffice suite. In a cabinet decision, the state announced it will make LibreOffice the standard Office software deployed across its public administration going forward. Officials cited the importance of independence and data security, saying they currently have no oversight into the operating processes of proprietary software solutions and how user data is handled. By adopting open-source LibreOffice, whose code is freely available to inspect and modify, the state aims to ensure it maintains full control over software used by public employees and agencies. The move follows a recent European ruling that the European Commission's use of Microsoft 365 violated data protection laws over concerns surrounding data transfers. Schleswig-Holstein leaders argue public administration should not be spending taxpayer money solely on proprietary, closed software from a single vendor when open-source alternatives exist. In addition to cost savings, they feel open source allows more flexibility to self-host, audit code, implement custom requirements, and support local software developers. The widespread transition away from Microsoft Office Productivity Suite marks a major milestone in European government adoption of open-source solutions over commercial software. We've seen governments move to open-source software before, only to move back again. But with 30,000 desktops and the current mood in Europe to take on software giants like Microsoft, this shift to LibreOffice will be watched as a pilot for other public agencies looking to assert greater digital independence and oversight of their IT systems. A serious security vulnerability that could have allowed malicious hackers to take control of millions of Linux-based computer systems has been discovered and mitigated by one person. The backdoor system was secretly inserted into xzutils, or XZ in the US, a widely used data compression utility found in many Linux operating systems and distributions like Debian and Fedora. But Microsoft developer Andres Freund stumbled upon the malicious code last week while investigating an unrelated software issue. Stumbled's not the right word. He saw an anomaly in machine performance and, driven by curiosity and some great skill, managed to track it back to find a compromised utility program. And when he realized that any machine running an operating system containing the compromised utility could have been susceptible to remote hijacking, he sounded the alarm. This was a clever attack, spun out over a protracted period of time. The backdoor was introduced over the course of years by someone using the name Jia Tan, who ingratiated themselves into the xzutils developer community and eventually became a co-maintainer with the ability to approve code changes. It could have been the perfect positioning to launch a huge supply chain attack that could have spread through a large number of Linux distros. An investigation is still ongoing, but evidence points to a coordinated effort involving multiple fake identities who advocated for Tan's involvement and the tainted software's wide distribution. Cybersecurity experts say the meticulous operation betrays a high level of sophistication, though the perpetrators' identities and motives remain unknown. Open source advocates argue that while such supply chain attacks are possible, XZ's open nature is what allowed the vulnerability to be exposed before causing catastrophic damage. U.S. cybersecurity agencies have issued alerts about the security flaw as analysts work to determine if it was state-sponsored or carried out by sophisticated cyber criminals. One thing for sure, It wasn't your run-of-the-mill hacker. And if you're a fan of the podcast, you will know that IT World Canada has been struggling. I'll be leaving at the end of today after more than a decade at the head of IT and content development. I will continue to operate and do my personal podcast, #trending, and I'll continue to produce Cybersecurity Today, which I developed some years ago, but which was taken to its current heights by my colleague, Howard Solomon. And we'll continue to post our show notes on itworldcanada.com as long as the sites remain operational, but we'll be looking for a new home and we'll share those plans with you over the coming weeks. From now on, you can reach me at therealjimlove@gmail.com. Not that fake Jim Love, but the real Jim Love. As always, I love to hear from you. I'm your host, The Real Jim Love. Have a fabulous Friday.